So, bottom line here is that this is an area where, you know, you just want to actually, you know, play it safe. But this is an area where the Border Patrol has to watch themselves as well. Everybody has to be careful down here. Like last night's group that you guys saw on the side of Pisano, that group was, half of it was cooperative, playing the asylum sit-down game. The other half took off, and some of them were combative with Border Patrol agents. So to assume that every group that comes through here, when they're coming from all 50 different countries, to assume that you're never going to have a problem, that's just foolish thinking. You can't guarantee what's going to come through this wall. You know, so, but I thought I would show you that. Those guys came down here to visit. Open Carry, Texas. Great organization. They're fighting hard for you people in Texas that you know, want to open carry just like they do here in the state of New Mexico. So I figured I would get them on camera, get a shout out so you guys could share the information and know that there are people out there that are fighting, that are you know, trying to help you guys you know, maintain that Second Amendment. So the bottom line is I'm just starting my night, so I'm pretty sure that you know, later on it's going to be a little more active here. But I'll show you guys something else since we're right here. This is something I've been showing a lot of you guys in the video. People have been asking me about the area where they climb over the wall. And this is the area right here, guys. This is where sometimes at night there's no ladder. See down here, there's a area underneath here where they can go underneath, okay, if they get over on the ladder. And then they come across like here where I showed you guys these other tunnels, okay? And things you should notice in this video, guys. What's missing from this picture? Anybody want to tell me, since we were kicked out of here? What's missing? Who hasn't been around since I started this video? You guessed it. Border Patrol. Why aren't they here? Because they're tied up in the processing center right now. They're processing people. They're taking care of other business. And God bless their hearts that they stick through this, because they're sure as heck not getting a lot of help from the governor here in New Mexico or any of the anti-border advocates who continue to maintain that there's nothing to see here, that there's no crisis. It's absolutely amazing. So, yeah, absolutely wide open. There's your wall, guys. Wide open. Anybody who wants to cross, come on in. See, and then they don't want us even stopping them, and they don't even want us detaining them. They want them to just come right on in. The railroad wants them to trespass. We're the evil militia. So it's all fake news, guys, but we're getting her done. I'm about to start my night here, so I'm sure I'll be back later on, but I wanted you guys to meet the people from Open Carry, Texas, and I promised I'd come down here and meet them at the wall. So anyway, I hope everybody's having a good day. I'll be back later on, guys. I don't know what tonight's going to bring, if it's going to be real busy or if it's going to be slow. But yeah, now because of the railroad, we're only really allowed to come up to about here. They don't want us up over the hill. So now if the illegals get up over the hill, there's nothing we can do about it. So, I'll talk to you guys later. This is Jim. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks for letting me trail you.
Yeah, no problem, guy. It's all good. Just be nice to me.
Oh, I have no agenda, so I mean,
okay, good.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. I have absolutely no reason to be mean to you.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
Well, where are you originally from?
I'm from Minnesota.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I just felt like you might have been from somewhere else other than Wyoming.
Yeah, no, I'm not from Wyoming.
Yeah.
How nasa Congress Congresswoman Veronica Escobar is now calling on an investigation into the armed militia group seen in this video here detaining migrants. As we reported, this happened in Sunland Park near the U.S.-Mexico border in Anapra Saturday morning. The video shows the United Constitutional Patriots armed and arresting a group of migrants. Actually, that video is not from Saturday. In a tweet by Escobar, she says, quote, "Armed militias are not only engaging in unlawful conduct, they are stripping migrants from their due process and dignity." She goes on to say her and both New Mexico Representative Deb Haaland and BENVIE Lujan are now calling on an FBI investigation into that incident.
And they're doing that, number one, I will tell you, climate change is playing an enormous impact on why people are fleeing Central America. What is happening is the drought that they are experiencing is essentially drying up their ability to grow their own food. These are indigenous populations. I have met with, interviewed, helped feed many of these families. The second thing that is happening is that, I'm gonna ask you one more time. We are going to engage in a very good, important dialogue. You're gonna have your chance to hold me accountable. If you will please allow me to speak with constituents without interrupting, please. Okay?
Good evening. My name is Veronica Escobar, and I'm a candidate for Congress from El Paso's 16th Congressional District here in Texas. And I'm also working to become the first Latina elected to Congress from our great state. We are inspired tonight by the dreamers all across the country, especially those here on the U.S.-Mexico border who have worked and fought so hard to bring attention to their plight and their struggle. We should fight and work for family reunification that keeps them together and a path to citizenship that allows them the potential to be everything we know they can be. Tonight, instead of focusing on those driven by divisiveness, let's focus on the state of the dream.
I just introduced last week H.R. 2203, the Homeland Security Improvement Act. And I want to pause a little bit just to tell you all why I feel this is so important and the companion work that is going to go into this. And it's linked directly to what we are seeing here in our community and in the Rio Grande Valley and in Arizona. We know that we have seen thousands of Central American families arriving at our doorstep. And I want to first say this community has responded in the most beautiful way imaginable. I have seen hundreds of El Pasoans open up their arms, their wallets, their pantries to help care for vulnerable families. I've seen people volunteering to, you'll have your chance to ask the question. I'm going to ask that if you don't mind, so that people around you can listen. Sir, please, we're going to engage in a civil way. We're going to engage in a civil way. And we're going to demonstrate the way we should engage, which is positively, okay? So I'm very proud of the way this community has responded. However, the federal government response, in my view, has been inadequate. And I think we probably all could agree with that inadequacy. We have seen as an example of how our resources are being used, as asylum seekers are presenting themselves at our ports of entry to lawfully seek asylum, they're being essentially told they can't come in. So they travel to more rural parts of the border, and they're presenting themselves at those rural parts of the border in areas where there are fewer agents, where there's fewer access to facilities, where the conditions are much more difficult for the agents who are coming into contact with these families. And then those same families who presented themselves in an urban area, who've gone out to a rural area, have to be transported back to an urban area. That does not make sense. We've also seen CBP agents pulled off our ports, our vital lifelines, economic lifelines, And as we've all learned through the federal government itself, the vast majority of illegal drugs come in through our ports of entry. 90% of the drugs entering our country come in through our ports. So we've pulled agents off the ports, which help our economy and keep us safe. And they've been doing data entry. These are highly trained, highly paid agents who've been put to work performing functions that civilians could and should perform. And so all the while, as a brand new member of Congress, fresh in, someone with totally a new perspective, I could see that this was a misuse of resources. And, worked with my colleagues, did my best to bring suggestions and ideas directly to the head of Homeland Security. But all of that essentially equates into taking what was a challenge and creating a crisis. And that's what we are seeing now, is a crisis as a result of decisions that were made that I think were ill-founded. And so the piece of legislation that I have introduced, I believe, will help with greater accountability and greater oversight. And I have spoken with members of various committees about a deep dive audit of one of the most well-funded agencies in the American government, the Department of Homeland Security. We have spent tens of billions of dollars, have far more resources today than ever before, and we don't have a nimble, well-equipped, highly functioning agency, which is what every taxpayer should have. So all of these pieces of legislation are intended to create a better functioning system for the American taxpayer. Okay, to continue on addressing our nation's immigration challenges, so if you all could forward to the slide that says addressing our nation's immigration challenges. I worked with my colleague, Henry Cuellar from the Valley, to put on the record a condemnation of shutting down the border. We know that those ports of entry essentially have created a quarter of the jobs in El Paso. They are a key component of our local economy, a key component of the state economy, and a key component of the national economy. That would be one of the most self-destructive acts that we would see, the shutting down of the border. And so we have spoken up against that. We have also, there's a number of others, but I want to bring one more thing to your attention before we move on. I have been working very hard through my committees and with my colleagues, and I have approached Democrats and Republicans alike about how vast a challenge we have on our hands right now. I have heard from a number of people who say, you can stop this if you build a wall, or you can stop this if you close loopholes, or you can stop this if you change certain laws. The places where these families are being apprehended are places where a wall already exists. So a wall is not preventing anyone from stepping foot on American soil, number one. And number two, the pieces of legislation that are being recommended as changes are essentially pieces of legislation that would directly harm children in our custody. So how do we begin to solve or address this, right? That's the big challenge for us. To do that, we have to understand why people are arriving at our doorstep. And I want to assure you, this has been something that I have taken a tremendous amount of time to study, a tremendous amount of time to understand, because we're witnessing it on our front doorstep. And if we're going to fix this, we have to understand it. So there's a few factors that we've got to reconcile in order to understand why families are fleeing their language, their family, and their homeland, leaving everything behind on a journey that is dangerous, going to a place where they recognize and they believe they are not wanted. And they're doing that, number one, I will tell you, climate change is playing an enormous impact on why people are fleeing Central America. What is happening is the drought that they are experiencing is essentially drying up their ability to grow their own food. These are indigenous populations. I have met with, interviewed, helped feed many of these families. The second thing that is happening is that, I'm gonna ask you one more time. We are going to engage in a very good, important dialogue. You're gonna have your chance to hold me accountable. If you will please allow me to speak with constituents without interrupting, please, okay? The second thing that is driving families from Central America is crushing poverty. The third is violence and persecution. And so I was just visiting with many of them on Sunday. I went into Juarez with a delegation of members of Congress to better understand this. And one of the questions that we asked them was, and there were many of them that had been waiting for as much as 3 months to try to legally declare asylum. I asked them, if you felt safe in your homeland and if you were able to grow your own food once again, would you have left? And to a person, they said, no, of course not. We would never have left. And so, as a hemisphere, and this is Canada, this is America, this is Mexico, this is Latin America, this is a collective challenge that we face in our hemisphere. And we've got to face it together. And we've got to face it with compassion and with good public policy. And so that's what I'm working on through my subcommittee on the House Judiciary Committee, the Subcommittee on Immigration. It's what I'm working on with colleagues in the Department of Homeland Security on that committee and with other members of Congress. We have to get this right. In the meantime, as people arrive on our front doorstep, we have to follow the law. And we need to treat people with dignity and compassion. And for that, I'm very proud of this community for setting that up.
That's where we are, guys. We're at the wall. You guys know exactly where this is. Right behind me is the wall. Of course, you know Camp Liberty used to be right above there until the railroad got involved. But government got the railroad involved.
Yeah, I zoomed in on them.
So just so you guys know, this is not me down here with the militia. This is a group called Open Carry Texas. They are fighting for open carry rights in the state of Texas. Now, as you guys know, we're in New Mexico right here. This is Sunland Park. So you know here that we actually have open carry rights.
So y'all know.
That's why when the guys walk around and they're armed to protect themselves.
Famous last words.
Yeah, I forgot my charger in the car. Actually, dang, my phone is just, or my charger's just right down there. If I can go back and get it.
Famous last words.
Yeah.
Anyway, with all this power down here at this wall,
I can't even see because my screen darkened to save battery. So I'm sorry, guys. I can't even see comments. I can't even see my screen. But that's okay. We're getting ready to leave anyway.
I don't blame them.
Hey, you know the charger
To come down here, but I don't
Yeah.
recommend coming down here unless you have some form of protection for yourself.
Huh.
I know I'm going to get.
Maybe I should have picked up that charger.
I know we're gonna take it out of context. You know, as a group, we made a decision that we would no longer carry long arms. That was a compromise that we made. But the fact of the matter is, I'm glad to see more people down here. I'm glad to see that these guys are out fighting the fight. I don't understand why Texas hasn't already gone to constitutional carry. It makes no sense to me.
And can I address that too?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I understand why some people, I understand why you guys would back off the long arms thing. I get it, so I'm not criticizing that. But I think the problem is that we shouldn't even have to compromise on that issue. The American people have just as much of a right to carry a gun out here, because when that Border Patrol guy came up and talked to us when we first got here, right sitting next to him was the same rifle that I've got. So why is it okay for them to carry and me not to carry?
Well, you know what? We still carry them in our trucks, but for the sake of allowing the fake news media to continue their narrative.
I just don't care what the
we're not
fake news
giving them
media
the
thinks.
We're not giving them the optics.
When we first got started, they attacked us a lot, and we just said we don't care what the media thinks. Well, and you guys have a different mission than we do, so I understand
your mission is to, and I like what your mission is.
Yeah.
I'm all about gun rights. I don't understand why Texas hasn't.
I don't either.
Yet. But the fact of the matter is, guys, is that, you know, like I said, I agree. Anybody who comes down to this wall, this is a Napa, Mexico. I've said this 100 times. I know that the fake news tells you that this area is not dangerous, but I'm here to tell you the Mexican police will not even go on the other side of that wall. There's a reason for that. This is staging central for the cartel. This is where they organize all the human trafficking, the sex trafficking. A lot of things happen on this side of the wall. They have stash houses over here. You have different cartels that use this entryway. I mean, you got to realize this is one of the easiest access points.
Personal hygiene.
And that group that we just had, that record group in the El Paso sector where there was 425 people, that was right here. They came right through here and ran right into that bowl, right where Camp Liberty used to be before the railroad evicted us. So, yeah, you see where the wall stops, right here. I think I've shown it a couple times in the video, but again, walls work up until the point they stop. When they stop and you have no wall, and you can go back and forth from Mexico, and you're in the human trafficking business, and you're getting, you know, $1,500 to what do you want to say, $5,000 a head. You know, you're talking about some serious money. So, you know, you're going to go the path of least resistance, and that's where it is. So, bottom line here is that this is an area where, you know, you just want to actually, you know, play it safe. But this is an area where the Border Patrol has to watch themselves as well. Everybody has to be careful down here. Like last night's group that you guys saw on the side of Pisano, that group was, half of it was cooperative, playing the asylum sit-down game. The other half took off, and some of them were combative with Border Patrol agents. So to assume that every group that comes through here, when they're coming from all 50 different countries, to assume that you're never going to have a problem, that's just foolish thinking. You can't guarantee what's going to come through this wall. You know, so, but I thought I would show you that. Those guys came down here to visit. Open Carry, Texas. Great organization. They're fighting hard for you people in Texas that you know, want to open carry just like they do here in the state of New Mexico. So I figured I would get them on camera, get a shout out so you guys could share the information and know that there are people out there that are fighting, that are you know, trying to help you guys you know, maintain that Second Amendment. So the bottom line is I'm just starting my night, so I'm pretty sure that you know, later on it's going to be a little more active here. But I'll show you guys something else since we're right here. This is something I've been showing a lot of you guys in the video. People have been asking me about the area where they climb over the wall. And this is the area right here, guys. This is where sometimes at night there's no ladder. See down here, there's a area underneath here where they can go underneath, okay, if they get over on the ladder. And then they come across like here where I showed you guys these other tunnels, okay? And things you should notice in this video, guys. What's missing from this picture? Anybody want to tell me, since we were kicked out of here? What's missing? Who hasn't been around since I started this video? You guessed it. Border Patrol. Why aren't they here? Because they're tied up in the processing center right now. They're processing people. They're taking care of other business. And God bless their hearts that they stick through this, because they're sure as heck not getting a lot of help from the governor here in New Mexico or any of the anti-border advocates who continue to maintain that there's nothing to see here, that there's no crisis. It's absolutely amazing. So, yeah, absolutely wide open. There's your wall, guys. Wide open. Anybody who wants to cross, come on in. See, and then they don't want us even stopping them, and they don't even want us detaining them. They want them to just come right on in. The railroad wants them to trespass. We're the evil militia. So it's all fake news, guys, but we're getting her done. I'm about to start my night here, so I'm sure I'll be back later on, but I wanted you guys to meet the people from Open Carry, Texas, and I promised I'd come down here and meet them at the wall. So anyway, I hope everybody's having a good day. I'll be back later on, guys. I don't know what tonight's going to bring, if it's going to be real busy or if it's going to be slow. But yeah, now because of the railroad, we're only really allowed to come up to about here. They don't want us up over the hill. So now if the illegals get up over the hill, there's nothing we can do about it. So, I'll talk to you guys later. This is Jim. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks for letting me trail you.
Yeah, no problem, guy. It's all good. Just be nice to me.
Oh, I have no agenda, so I mean,
okay, good.
Yeah, I'm not trying to. I have absolutely no reason to be mean to you.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. I hear you.
Well, where are you originally from?
I'm from Minnesota.
Yeah. I don't know why, but I just felt like you might have been from somewhere else other than Wyoming.
Yeah, no, I'm not from Wyoming.
Yeah.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Texas.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the panel. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being here. I am from the safe, secure, and vibrant U.S.-Mexico border community of El Paso, Texas, where unfortunately we have the dubious distinction of being the testing ground for the Trump administration's family separation policy. Chief Provost, I have a couple questions for you as follow-ups to what some of my colleagues asked you. You acknowledged earlier that you do not know how many children were separated, beginning with the time that the policy was implemented in El Paso in July 2017, and when the policy was officially announced on April 6, 2018. Is that correct?
I don't have that number with me. It is a number that I can get.
Okay, so then you do know how many children exactly were separated during that testing period?
Once again, it wasn't a family separation testing period.
I understand that.
It was a prosecution initiative like many others we have done, but we can pull that information.
Okay, and I'll tell you, and so if we could have that, I'd appreciate that. We do, in El Paso, we call it the child separation policy, because that is exactly what happened. I know it's far more academic to call it by its governmental name, but those of us who have actually sat with the families who've been separated and then reunited, we have seen the trauma firsthand. It's painful, and we should call it for what it is. So what is the plan? Do you know how many of those families during that testing period, how many of them have been reunited?
I do not. That is something that, once again, anybody that we separate for whatever reasons, and there are still reasons that we have to separate children from parents, that information we provide to HHS going forward, and I don't deal with the reunifications.
Okay, who on the panel deals with the reunifications?
That would be me, ma'am.
And can you tell me how many of those children have been reunited, those who were separated during the testing period?
If the child was still in ORR's care on the 26th of June 2018, regardless of when they were separated, whether they were separated during the declared period of zero tolerance or before, those are minors who are in the Ms.L., whose parents are in the Ms.L. class, and we can say of those which were reunified and which were not. What neither I nor anyone in HHS knows is which of the children who had already been discharged from our care before the 26th of June which of them were separated and which weren't. Although, if someone were to give us such a list, we could certainly tell you to whom we discharged every single one of those children.
Who can get you that list?
We don't have it in HHS. I would assume that only DHS could provide such a list.
Okay, so we need to make sure. Will you request that list from DHS? Wouldn't it be incumbent on us to make sure that every single child that was separated could be accounted for? Isn't that our obligation?
That's a matter that Judge Sabra is deciding right now.
But I'm talking about the folks before, I'm talking about the children and the families separated.
But unless there is a court order, we are not going to go into the homes of families to take a child out from their other parent or their aunt to bring it back.
All right, thank you. I reclaim my time. Earlier in this hearing, Mr. Raskin referenced the work of the Texas Civil Rights Project. Because of their work, we know that family separation continues to this day, several months after an executive order should have stopped it. Madam Chair, I ask unanimous consent that a report by the Texas Civil Rights Project entitled "The Real National Emergency, Zero Tolerance, and the Continuing Horrors of Family Separation at the Border" be entered into the record.
Without objection.
Chief Provost, you stated earlier that children are currently being separated from their parents when the parent has a criminal conviction. Does that include illegal reentry?
It is not for standard entry. If they have a felony charge, it can include illegal reentry.
So they are being separated today because of illegal reentry?
That is a felony. If they have a conviction for it from previous, where they have a felony conviction, they would be a felon, so then in that case.
Shocking.
Not for the reentry at this point, it's if they have a felony conviction.
Madam Chair, I ask unanimous consent that a news report by Julia Ainsley entitled, quote, "Trump administration weight targeting migrant families, speeding up deportation of children" be inserted into the record.
Without objection. And the gentlewoman's time has expired.
May I ask a final question just related to this article? The article details memos, one of which...
I'm sorry. We can't.
Okay.
Recognize the gentlewoman from Florida.